I'm Michael from Barking and Dagenham College. I'm one of the English and Maths coordinators. We're going to start with a kind of overview. This is a present that we've been using, and it kind of gives an account of research that we've undertaken over the last year. We were fortunate enough, a colleague of myself, sponsored by the ETF, and we were afforded the opportunity to conduct some research, practitioner research, and we wanted to look at initial assessment. So, for our college at the minute, an English initial assessment, it looks something like this. Okay, students are brought in. Julia spoke earlier about cattle shed reality, and it very much looks akin to that for us. Students brought in August. Hi, welcome to Barking and Dagenham College. You want to study plumbing or motor vehicle? Come and do an English assessment straight away. That's the first thing they do. They do their computer assessment. I'm not going to name the assessment they do, but it's the one you're thinking of, I'm sure. It starts and ends with the second letter of the alphabet. So, yeah, they come in, they do their assessment. What happens? They're labelled at working at a specific level. Okay, you're working at entry 3. What does that mean? What's entry 3? What's level 1? Do we even know that? I don't know. So, we know that it doesn't give the full story of a student's abilities. Okay, it's merely a number. We have an example here. I apologise for those of you at the back if you can't quite see this, but this is a result from a student that sat on the 16th of September of this year, or last year for us, this academic year. So this student, they took 37 minutes of their time out to complete an assessment, and they got told topics I'm good at, none. You need to take care in vocab, and here's some stuff you need to work on. Okay? Great big list. Not very motivating. Okay, so start of our research. We looked at the staff voice. We kind of asked our staff, why do you think they do initial assessment? These are the staff that conduct the assessment. They're not practitioners. They're not educators. They're like library staff, effectively. And they were saying, well, the students, they're not supervised when they do it. They use Google, or they use calculators for the maths one. They themselves recognised it wasn't an accurate insight into students' abilities. And there were problems with like computer illiterate students as well. So if you bring in an adult student, hi, do an assessment. I've never used a computer before. Okay, we're really sorry about that. Do an assessment. Yeah, there wasn't an alternative. So if we were going to look at initial assessment from a research point of view, we wanted to look at literature, because literature, of course, forms the basis of any textual kind of exploration. So we couldn't find any, quite simply. In FE, as we know, there is no research that's done, really. Nothing prominent. And specifically nothing that we could find on initial assessment. Now, we found this kind of interesting analogy with medicine, because, of course, there's loads of research done into medicine. And the initial assessment in medicine, the importance of it. So we found this. It's Trauma Care from Cole 2009. And we really liked it because it's talking about how important initial assessment is. We had to make some slight edits for our own purposes. So instead of the initial assessment and resuscitation of trauma patients, we put English students. And of course, the analogy we're working with here is if you're unwell and you go to the hospital, if a doctor uses a stethoscope and checks your breathing or something and goes, yeah, you're going to need a leg amputation or something, you're going to go, what? What are you forming that off? Okay, you're jumping the gun a bit. And maybe that's what we kind of felt we were doing with some of our students. So, a little case study. We looked at what we were doing, and we knew in our classes it was working. We were kind of initially assessing in there anyway. We found a student that was assessed at entry level 2. She came in. The computer kind of labelled her. We worked with her for a few months, and it became very apparent this student is far more proficient in English than what maybe had been let on. At the end of the year, she got a level 2 functional skills qualification. That was what the tutor had kind of, that had worked with her, decided she was capable of. So, kind of posing the question now, if they do well in lesson, why not assess in lesson? So we kind of drew these questions. We wanted to find out how accurate the current systems were. Who's it conducted for? Is it for SLT? Is it for the students? Is it for Ofsted? And is there a more effective alternative, which we will come to? Okay, so the actual research itself, what we found. Well, The assessment, which will remain unnamed, they say 30 minutes per student per assessment. How long did ours take? Under 12 minutes. That was from a sample of 50. They were racing through it. Our quickest was like 2 minutes. So they were going, you know, and you've got to laud their computer skills, but at the same time, they weren't trying. Okay, we looked at the end of year results as well. Sample of 200 students. What level did they sit their functional skills exam at? Over half sat at a different level. Okay? I think, yeah, just under 20, sorry, sat at a level with 2 or more, so they were set to say a lower level, and then they did far greater. So this discrepancy is kind of suggesting the initial assessment. It wasn't accurate. We looked against Bloom's taxonomy, and we found a lot of the questions they were being asked, and you'll know this if you're familiar with these assessments yourselves. Click the pronoun. Put this in alphabetical order. You know, Emma was saying earlier about don't patronise our students. What, you want me to put this in alphabetical order? Really? I've got a GCSE D or something. You're asking me to put this in alphabetical order? It's not engaging, not challenging enough. Okay, in absence of initial assessment literature, we looked at just wider literature, and we found some really great stuff. Frank Caulfield, who spoke at some of the residentials we attended, fantastic educator, he said, look, you're the teachers, consider what you do and decide what we want to hang on to and what we should maybe abandon. And maybe stuff like this is stuff we should move away from. Maybe. If it's not working, don't stick with it. Sue Crowley, well, she said, if we accept the importance of initial assessment, then why is it that the students shouldn't take part in that with the tutor, with their tutor, with their teacher? Open a dialogue and let them have a say in it. And Piaget, it's kind of been our mantra throughout this project. In the search for a better equilibrium, maybe you have to introduce a bit of a disequilibrium. Maybe we've got to mix things up a bit and try something bold and something new and different. So, Florence Nightingale, to kind of carry our medical analogy through, she said, do no harm. That's all we can do in 1860. And maybe we're doing harm at the minute. If students are coming to us and their first experience of English post-school, post-16, is, hi, nice to meet you, sit on a computer, do this cold clinical assessment. It's not engaging them, it's not exciting them. So, on to the good stuff, the recommendations. Well, in light of our findings, we think that, first of all, we should engage students' initial assessment. It should provide accurate results, obviously. It can't merely be a box-ticking exercise. It should be in the interest of the students and the staff, and it can't just be computer-led. It cannot be, hi, sit there, see you in half an hour, and there's your result. It's not what it's about. If we've kind of determined that the current assessment systems we use weren't sufficient, we need to develop an alternative. So, I'm not sure if this shows up very well. This is us kind of doing a joint practice development, get together, get some pens, get a whiteboard, get a room, turn off the emails, let's talk about what we envisage as an alternative. And this is as we saw it. We knew it needed to be engaging, but how? We knew it had to be comprehensive, and we need to break that down. As Aga mentioned then, multifaceted. The current systems is pretty much just a reading comprehension, that's all it can do. And a bit of focused writing like sentence grammar or word grammar. It can't do much beyond that. We wanted something that's multifaceted, that's going to do speaking and listening, it's going to do writing. Yeah, if GCSE is going to be assessed through an exam that's written, we need to know students' writing level. Yeah? And that kind of takes us to this. So our new alternative, and we are committed to an alternative. So we know we wanted to initially fill in the gap left by the current assessment with writing. There's nothing at the minute. Our tutors at the start of the year, they all do a writing task, of course, and I'm sure everyone here has their students do writing, but it's kind of disparate little things, little pockets of excellence, you could argue, like kind of what's been mentioned here today, but not this overarching, consistent approach, and that's what we're trying to develop. So, one of the other practitioners on this residential program I went to, she's vastly experienced educator. She works in the City of Bath College. She used to teach in Australia, and she said, you know what, check out Australia. They know what they're doing, far better than us in the UK. So I had a little search online and I found this. So this is Queensland Government. That's the northeast state of Australia, and they use a test and assessment for all their 18-year-old students. It's a written assessment, and all their students do this. It's kind of like an A-level equivalent, if you will. And we opened a dialogue with them because they use this fantastic assessment. Basically, our ambition is to create a multimodal writing assessment, and that's what we're in the process of doing now. Multimodal is using various modes: images, audio, video, and having students base a piece of writing on stimulus, these multimodal stimulus that they're hopefully engaged by. Now, the QCS developers, the government themselves, they said, well, we like what you're talking about, because at the minute, they only use images. Well, this is an example of the assessment that they use.